Hey, what's up everybody, Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I'm sitting here doing my squat regimen. I got one more set to do, and it's early in the morning. I've been up since 5 a.m. because a bird in this room started chirping. I don't know if they started fighting or what, but it was well before the sun came up. It was just ridiculous, and I had my window open. Anyway, none of that is important. The point is, I've been up for a while listening to Anthony Irwin's podcast. I enjoy his podcast. Laker guy, and essentially what he was saying was, this season reminded him of his Vikings season. He's a Vikings fan. I hate the Vikings, by the way, but nevertheless, he's a Vikings fan. He was essentially saying they weren't bad enough to get a good pick, to get a good quarterback, and they weren't good enough to actually do anything, so they were kind of in just a no man's land situation, and that was what he likened the Lakers season to, and I agree. No man's land hell. And that took me to a place where I just had like a vision, not a real vision, but like just a daydream where I was considering where this goes from here for the front office. And it just hit me. They really do need to consider the fact that they've made a lot of mistakes, and some of the decision making that they've engaged in is similar to what the rumors are going forward, which is they want another star. We've been digging ourselves into a hole, and as we continue to do so, the further we dig ourselves into that nestled space that he was describing, where you're not good enough to do anything but not bad enough to get any better, essentially. And I just think, as I've been trying to preach to you guys about what I think the Lakers should do, it just reiterates my thought. They really do need to reset, and they should probably do it sooner than later. And I know that we're in a weird position because we don't have our picks, so tanking this year doesn't make any sense. But further digging yourself into that hole to create these lofty expectations for your team to be better, only for you to fail in the end, is just going to make you more frustrated and put you in a position where you will wish you had kind of started the process of your rebuild, or started the process of a foundation that you could really sustain. You don't want to tank. And I told myself yesterday something that I hadn't really considered. It's like, in listening to another podcast, they were essentially saying, if you're going to go forward with LeBron James, you got to be good enough to, if not win a championship, at least look like you can win a championship, because otherwise holding on to Bron doesn't make any sense. Well, if you let go of Bron, you're resetting and you're tanking, and you're potentially putting AD in a situation where he will want out. So you can't necessarily not go for the gusto, because otherwise you're asking LeBron James to stick around for something that isn't worth his time. So either you're going to go forward with LeBron James and bring him that third star, because he cannot necessarily lead a team anymore, and AD and Bron have proven to not be good enough to win a championship alone without another star. Because we tried that just now. It didn't work. The Russell Westbrook thing obviously was a bad fit, but maybe could have worked if it would have been a different superstar and they would have stayed healthy. So the understanding that I'm trying to wrap my head around, which is something I would prefer not to have to do, but feel like we have to do it to a degree, is go all in for a superstar, or accept the fact that we're in a tank year that is not going to give us our pick, assuming the Pelicans don't defer that pick to next year and allow us to have it this year. We won't have it next year. So you either go forward with Bron and bring in the star he needs to be a good enough contender to succeed, or you let Bron walk and then you have a bad year where you're not doing nothing at all. Now, the equation for me is to try to find myself nestled in between what makes him happy and what gives me the opportunity to initiate my rebuild the following season when I do have a pick, if I'm thinking like them. Problem is, he's talking about signing on for 2 or 3 years in theory, though he said he's not doing anything. The rumors are he wants to sign on for several years. I really, as a Laker fan, love having LeBron James, but if he's not in a position to be the Bron that he needs to be in order for me to not need another star on top of Anthony Davis and himself, pushing all of my cap space into 3 bodies and then leaving me with very little to try to fill out the rest of my roster, I don't think that is a whole lot better than having a year where you're tanking for no pick, because you're not going to be good enough any damn way. And what you're going to end up doing is mortgaging more of the future to further that process along, for which you will have the same scenario as you continue to mortgage these picks. Now, I know and have said a million times that if you trade your picks for the right star, you can retrade that star for those same picks or different picks or more picks. If he's able to, come here and do well, you can then, upon initiating your rebuild, get picks through the star that you acquire. The more valuable you have, the more valuable you can trade. But it doesn't always turn out that way. When you bring in stars and then they find themselves unhappy, they tank their value by demanding trades. They tend to get hurt, and then you're stuck with a bad team and they lose value significantly, and now you're paying a lot of money for that star. So what I'm telling you is, if what I have to do is dig myself further in a hole that's only going to give me more of these type of little headaches going forward, then I don't really see the fruit in going forward with LeBron and the star treatment necessary, the star scenario necessary. I would rather cut my losses, conserve my money, swallow this year, and then rebuild when I have my picks in 26, rather than mortgage 28 and 29 so that I can keep LeBron happy, only for him to find himself not good enough to win a championship. Now I had to spend all this damn money on something that was never expected to be as good enough as it needed to be, nor did I do it because I wanted to do it. I just did it because it was the lesser of two evils. But is it really, is what I'm trying to argue. Is it really the lesser of two evils if I have to dig myself further into a hole in order to make it survive, basically? Shouldn't I just look at it and say, yo, this 2025 season is a wash? It's a complete wash. Because what you're going to do is you're going to dig yourself into a further hole, and then you're going to find out the 2030 season and the 29 season is a wash because you didn't mortgage all your picks and risked the idea of that not recouping. And if it doesn't recoup, boy, is that a much worse evil in the long run. Just so you can hold on to LeBron James for 25, 24, and 25 and not do anything for the 2024-2025 season and not win the championship. But you're going to mortgage more of your picks and more of your future to kick this can down the road to make that headache worse tomorrow. I just don't think that really... You can put off a headache if you like, but it's still coming. It's either death or the headache. It's one or the other. So it's like, we got to assess what the lesser of two evils really is. Because if the only logical thing for us to do is bring another $200 million superstar to LeBron James and AD in order to make LeBron James' tenure here make sense, if that's not good enough to win a championship, or if that goes on the worst case scenario side of things, you got a much worse problem than you have right now with this scenario in front of you, trying to figure out if it makes sense to bring Bron another star or if it makes sense to let him go. You're going to have a worse problem. And so maybe you say, well, for the revenue of it all, let's just go forward with these stars. At least they could bring a lot of money to Genie. But again, we're going to be frustrated as fans, and we're going to start giving more vitriol to Genie, for which she doesn't want. You know what I mean? She's not going to want that. How angry people are going to be if this continues to be more frustrating than it already is. We had a bad season with the Russell Westbrook thing. First year was horrible. We were all angry. We all ended the season unhappy. The second year, we traded Russell. The season started off just as bad, but we ended it in the Western Conference Finals only to be swept by a team like the Denver Nuggets, who still are beating the hell out of us because of them being good and us not making the decisions that can ultimately give us the foundation to build something as good as they are. So if we're going to continue to do that, who's to say we're not going to be just as frustrated? Now, mind you, Anthony Edwards has arrived. Wembanyama's coming tomorrow. All these different teams are coming with young players, and we're still going to try to dig ourselves into a further future hole with the future now in place, and we're getting a glimpse of what it's going to look like. You're going to dig yourself further into a hole so you can keep something that's not good enough feeling like it can be good enough as it fails, and it's going to cost you more to do that. I don't. People wonder why the Lakers haven't fired Darvin Ham. People wonder why the Lakers are being very careful. I don't know what they're really doing, but it seems to me that they're keeping their options open because they really do have to figure this out before making the next move. Why? Because if you fire Darvin Ham and you don't know which type of coach to bring in based on the circumstance, you could potentially bring in the wrong coach and you're still paying Darvin Ham. If we're tanking next year, you may still want to fire Darvin Ham, but at least you know what type of coach you can bring in. Maybe you can hire Phil Handy as an interim and not go down the path of trying to go bring in a serious coach for an unserious situation. Now, the sweet medium for me is to just bring LeBron back and then continue to build the same way we did last year. If I'm gonna have a trash year, I'm not gonna want to invest. I'm not gonna want to dig myself into a further hole. I can stay at the level I'm at, not pour any more or any less into it. Bring myself a bunch of guys like last year. Not bring back the entire same team, but maybe guys that are worth the same thing. And then come back with Bron and AD and just go forward and get bopped out in the first round next year. I think I can live with that. But if the logic is, if we're bringing Bron back, he must have another star because we must be in contention, then that's me digging that hole that I don't really want to dig myself into. Unless I can find a sweet trade that doesn't require I do so. And so maybe that's the equation. Try to find that sweet trade that only, maybe you mortgage one pick, but not all three. Because I as a fan don't want my team to mortgage all three picks for a star. I really don't want to do that. Because I don't think that the 3-star model, it works. I don't think that star is going to be happy when they get here unless there's a certain type of player, have a certain mindset and a certain level of sacrifice to their personality. And I don't think Bron and AD can win anymore unless I'm building something that's allowing for more size, for which I don't know what we're going to find, unless we keep the pick from this year and maybe draft us a Zach Edey or something like that. So if I got to mortgage my future, if I have to give away that pick in order to bring the star in, and the star that they're looking at is somebody who's my height, my weight, toward Trae Young, he ain't that much bigger than me. It's like, I don't think that's going to help us against what we have problems with. We may be able to run the score up, but when we run into these teams that are good with big players, we're going to get ousted quickly. So if what you're paying for is going to leave you in the same space that where you are right now, then why would you pour any more into it? Why would you do that? Unless you just think that Trae Young is a player that you want to move forward past LeBron James' tenure here, and you want him in place early. But I'm telling you, the thing that concerns me about that is, will he want to, if this goes bad, if he has a bad tenure here? Will he want to play for the Lakers? And maybe the answer is, of course. Everybody wants to play for the Lakers, good or bad, especially if they're going to be able to take over the canvas. Okay, that may be the case. But if the team is going to have no assets going forward, that player's tenure with the Lakers is not going to go well. It's that foundation that will allow them to be able to have a team built around them that they can actually succeed with. It's one thing to be a Laker. Ooh. It's another thing to have the expectations of being a Laker, which is win championships, multiple ones, and then have the front office not be able to put together a team that can do it. This is what LeBron ran into over the last 6 years. It's what AD has run into over the last 6 years, and it's because we've been doing things the wrong way, regardless of why or who told us to do it. You just didn't allow yourself to have that foundation, and you kept kicking the can down the road, and as a result, the can is in front of you right now. And you're just looking to, punt it again, rather? I just don't think that makes... We got to stop doing that, because the can keeps coming around. And as it does, you find yourself looking down at it on the ground, saying, man, should I kick it some more? Only to dig yourself further in the hole. At some point in time, you got to realize the hole is there because you keep digging it. At some point in time, you got to start repaving over that thing so it can stop being a hole, so you can have the foundation that we always talk about. Man, so that's what I want the Lakers to start doing, man. 2024 seems like a good enough year to look at the problem and say, let's stop making it worse. Let's stop making it worse. If we got to eat a year or two, it's time to start eating that year, because at the end of the day, if we have to dig more of a hole just to maintain the level that we're on, then we're not in a space where that makes any sense, because the level we're on isn't good enough. We're not winning. We are not winning. And most importantly, we're getting beat by the same team. It doesn't sound like we're going to build anything that's going to allow us to be competitive against that team. So, like I said, if LeBron James wants to be here and AD wants to be here, I will eat another year of the core. But as far as me mortgaging any more of my future, I consider that kicking the can down a road, only for it to trip me up later on in a much worse way, man. And I don't feel that the Lakers front office is going to be pleased with that in the long run. They're not going to be pleased with that. What's going to end up happening is they're going to keep on doing that, going to keep having these lofty expectations. You're going to keep having unhappy, frustrating seasons, and then eventually you're going to be in such a frustrated space that you're just going to want to throw papers all over the world, all over the room. You're just going to want to throw the papers up in the air. Like, that's what it's going to get to for this front office, because everything that they're going to put together is not going to be good enough. And the only reason why is because they haven't allowed that foundation to be set so that they can build anything good enough. That's what I think, man. You're just going to get to a point where you're overly frustrated. We're kind of frustrated right now. You keep digging us into this future hole, and it's just going to get worse, man. It's just going to get worse. LeBron James and Anthony Davis may not be able to win a championship together anymore because of the game changing and these teams being constructed in such a way that they can't beat for whatever reason without more talent that we can afford to bring, and we can't bring that talent to us because of that lack of foundation. That's why you can't make them good enough to win. And that's always what I'm talking about. That is the gist of my thought. It's not because there's no way to build something around it. It's because you keep digging a hole. And when it's time for you to build something, you don't have the assets to do it. So that's what it is. The reset needs to happen because of the Russell Westbrook trade being so terrible for our team. Once we gave away KCP, a first round pick, Kyle Kuzma, that was a lot of stuff that should have either stayed with our organization or been divvied out in different directions instead of brought back in that form. Russell Westbrook, player that didn't fit, was going to diminish in our uniform and cost us 3 times, 4 times what he would actually be worth. That is why reset is necessary now. You are lacking some of the assets necessary to build a full basketball team or withstand any injuries at all without not being very good. It just is what it is. Now you can not only cover up that hole, but start building up some stairs on top of it if you swallow your greed, swallow your pride, and move on from this era while these guys still have value. Then you could build a whole elevator and all types of stuff. You could build a whole mountain if you want to. You know what I mean? Like literally. Because they are still valuable enough to recapture not only what you lost, but a lot more than that at this point. But if you allow them to diminish in your uniform and retire in your uniform, all that goes out the window, and now you got a crater, not just a hole. You're sitting in the Grand Damn Canyon with no assets, having mortgaged all that away, hoping to God that you can trade Trae Young to get it all back when he ain't gonna probably be worth that. Or you're not going to want to trade him because he's the only thing of value you're going to have. Maybe you get lucky and get a couple more Austin Reeves, but all that great stuff, I don't know where you're going to get it from, because ain't no free agent's going to want to come here because of what it is I just described, and they're going to understand it, and they're going to have better options. Or maybe you get a B-star, and you're going to have to pay him A-star money for the same reason, and you're not going to be good enough. You'll be where you are now. You know what I mean? With Trae Young and somebody cool. Some really solid guy who may have made an all-star team twice or something like that. You ain't gonna be good enough. But if you allow yourself to build that mountain, well, everybody's going to want to come here. When Anthony Edwards is a free agent, 6 years down the road after he signed his initial $270-300 million contract, he's going to be looking at the Lakers. When Wembanyama finishes his tenure with the San Antonio Spurs, signs his first real contract and plays that out, he's going to be looking at the Los Angeles Lakers. Why? Because not only do you have the sunshine, but you got all the assets in the world. The New York Knicks are about to find that out if they don't mortgage their picks. They're going to find out that free agents are going to want to come there. Why? Because you got the assets to build whatever I want around me. Teams aren't patient enough to do that. OKC has those assets. San Antonio has those assets. But they don't have this sunshine. They don't have this big market. You do. So all you got to do is build what they have, and you're going to get what it is that ultimately they can't get. On top of all the young talent that's going to be coming in the league inevitably. Certain things are just... You're going to want whoever's coming tomorrow. Just like you want to pay LeBron James and you want to pay Anthony Davis, you're going to want to pay somebody else tomorrow. Those guys are inevitable. They're coming. The league just is... It's always going to have stars, man. And as they do, you're always going to want them in your uniform. What you do today is going to make it so that either you can afford to bring them in or to be a desirable place for them to land, or not be able to and revisit where you were when you were having LaMarcus Aldridge, Carmelo Anthony problems, which is where we desperately don't want to return. We got to know what put us in that hole in the first place. It was doing things the wrong way and not having assets. Not having assets. Letting guys stay in our uniform too long and not trading them away while they still had value. You do understand that's kind of what happened to us. We traded away Lamar Odom. That situation had gone bad. Once we traded him in the CP3 trade and that we got reneged, he came back here unhappy, in a bad space of mind, and ultimately we had to trade him for Dallas for pennies on the dollar. Pau Gasol, when he finally left our uniform, he wasn't worth anything. He ended up signing with the Chicago Bulls, was a role player after that, not much longer after that. We didn't get anything real for him. This is why our team was in the hole we were in the first place. Couldn't trade Kobe Bryant. Wasn't nobody going to do that, but what you were going to do is pay him. So guess what? You didn't have any assets on top of that. That was your value. That was all the money you had. Andrew Bynum, injuries, stole his value from us. We didn't trade him while he was the best center in the league that one year he was, and we weren't able to capture his value. Don't the Lakers understand this is why things go wrong? It's because they keep letting people retire in their uniform or diminish in value when they leave. You need to get people up out of here when they still have value so that you can capture that value in picks. Cashing out when something's worth something, not letting it dissipate in your uniform or walk away. You let Julius Randle walk away to the New Orleans Pelicans. That should have been captured. That's value. That's value captured. You let Alex Caruso sign with the Bulls or whatever the hell. Value walking out the door. This is why you're in that hole, because you keep on letting value dissipate into nothing. And you want to do that? You're signing up to do that again with the most valuable player maybe in the last 30 years, LeBron James. You're signing up to let that happen again with the most valuable player. How does it make sense? You're going to spend more value to keep him in uniform as he diminishes in value? How does that make sense? This is why people call the Lakers organization a bad organization as it pertains to our front office, because this is their vision. It doesn't make sense. And you keep making this mistake over and over again with different assets, and you keep on finding that the assets dissipate and the value disappears on your uniform. We need to stop doing that. We need to realize when the stock is high, that's when you cash out. You don't cash out when the stock is low. And you certainly don't let it run to zero on you and get delisted. This is how we've been operating. And we wonder why we don't have a good enough team to get anywhere. It's because we're asking our team, our unit, to move forward with that being the starting point from which they were constructed. And then we blame the coaches, we blame the players, when it's really in the construction of the team. This is what Chuck was saying last night. We're blaming Coach Ham. But the reality is the team wasn't put together properly. Do you know why the team wasn't put together properly? Salute the Kobe minute. Because of what I just described. Literally that. It all trickles down. So as you kick the can down the road to keep doing this, this is what you're going to be leaving the next organizational leaders to try to figure out. And you know what they're going to have to do? Exactly what I just described. At some point in time, they're going to have to swallow these bad seasons so that they can leave themselves a foundation for which things can be built. And the longer you wait on doing that, the worse it is. The longer you wait on doing that, the more difficult it's going to be to build then. So giving away picks for 29 and 30 to bring back a Trae Young, that is a risk in my mind that doesn't look like a very good one. Because Trae's worth that today. Will he be worth that in the end of this process? Can you assure that he will be? Or is it that you're building something that's going to likely diminish his value because you're going to be asking him to do too much because he's going to be playing with too little? You're going to run his little body into the ground. You see what I'm saying? You got to be able to foresee all of that. And if you can't foresee all of that, then you're setting yourself up to be blamed for being a bad organization, not doing things properly. You got to reset to fix what you have here, man. And you could tell LeBron James is going to do whatever we can to keep him happy. But if I'm working with half of what I need to pay for a reasonable basketball team that can win a championship, then I cannot actually afford to make him happy. I could tell him I'm going to make him happy. I could bend over backwards to make him happy. But eventually I'm just going to snap my spine in doing so. And he's still going to have demands. You see what I'm saying? He's still going to have demands. I liken this to what we did with Coach Lue. We brought Coach Lue in, lowballed him, and then told him we're going to align him with LeBron James's years. You only get 3 years because we got LeBron on contract. LeBron has signed 2 contracts since then. It was a bad assessment. You should have signed him on for whatever he wanted. Bron was going to stay any damn way. Bron is still going to be here in that scenario. And in this scenario, I don't know when Bron's going to retire. But me continuing to have to live up to his win now timeline every year, it's making it so that I can no longer afford to even build something decent. It just gets worse and worse and worse. He's going to keep telling you to mortgage your picks. Bring me Kevin Durant. Bring me Russell Westbrook. Nah, we can't do that anymore. Because we literally can't afford to. It's not that you're not worth it. You're worth whatever you say you're worth. We can't afford it. You could tell me right now to buy $1 million house. Where's the money coming from? I don't have that. Well, you could say, well, you're going to lose that wife of yours. She got to be happy. Well, I can't manifest the money out of nothing. What I'm going to do, come rob you? She just going to have to leave because I don't have it. It ain't there. And that's kind of the situation the Lakers are in. They want to keep up this moniker of being the team that keeps the stars happy. But if everything you're doing is putting you in a further position and not be able to do so, then maybe you should reset so you can do so. And then you can keep that going righteously. Rather than to keep the guys going and fake it till you make it when you really can't afford to do it. You literally can't afford to do it. So that's what I'm trying to help my organization understand, man. A good organization is going to know when it's time to fold, man. A good organization is not going to sign up to let its most valuable possessions diminish in its value, in its uniform. You're not going to sign up for that. Because you know that doesn't make you look good. It really forces you into looking incompetent. You're going to look incompetent because you're not doing things the right way. You're not incompetent because you're unwilling. You're incompetent because you don't realize that you're unable. Self-awareness. The realization that I can not do something. Not that I'm unwilling and that everybody's going to blame me for being unwilling, but that I'm going to try without what I need, and then everybody's going to see me looking that way, which is a bad way too. Nobody's confusing unwilling with unable. You're unable. You're not unwilling. And if you put yourself in a position to be willing, then you can show how able you would be. And how willing you would be, rather. So that's what the Lakers need to understand, man. Nobody's going to look at you and say you weren't willing to keep LeBron happy. People are going to look at you and say LeBron ran through everything you had, and if you continue going down that path, you weren't going to have anything at all. That's what they're going to say. As it pertains to your cap space and your asset class. You just got to know what it looks like to do things correctly. You got to know what it looks like to be competent. And the Lakers got to get that right with their front office, man. We got to get that right, bro. Because if we give away more picks, we finally got 3 picks that are tradable. We didn't kick the can down so far in the road, we couldn't even trade picks until now. Now we finally got 3 picks we can finally trade, and we're going to give them away. Make sense. That's like somebody giving a poor person a bunch of money. As soon as they get it, they give it away. As soon as they get it, they buy them something they can't afford to even keep up. Like, that's not when you start giving away those picks. You hold on to those picks. You build yourself into a situation where you have 6 picks. Then it's okay for you to give away 3 picks because you still got 3 more. The day you get 3 picks to trade, you give them away. Guess what you have after that? You have none again. Now you're waiting another 5 years to get 3 picks so you can do what? Trade them away? No. And then some people will say, well, that's just the Laker way. No, that's the stupid way. And if you want to maintain what it is to be a Laker, you don't do things stupid. You do things smart. I'm telling y'all, man. And then in 2030, when you have 7, 8, 9 picks, then you can stand and say, I'm the Lakers, I'm willing, and I'm able. I can responsibly make these decisions that bring me these stars without it depleting everything that I have, and I can have good role players, and my team should be competing for championships from here till 2033. That's what you really should want, not mortgaging everything from those years in 2024 so that you can build something that potentially, if not inevitably, is not going to be good enough to beat the field around you. If the field is going to be too much for you to beat, you might as well be bottom out and put yourself in a position to sustain past this era while building your foundation, while all these Minnesotas and Denvers just beat the hell out of everybody any damn way. It's the truth. Rather than try to compete with them throwing rocks at their throne and not being good enough to beat them. Why? Already described. So, Bron want to be a Laker. Everybody wants to be a Laker. And that is why we need to build our foundation. Because, again, everybody wants to be a Laker. Who doesn't want to be a Laker with a good asset class? The Lakers with 20 picks is the best thing anyone would ever want. Any player with any sense whatsoever would want to be a Laker under those circumstances. But if you're a Laker that doesn't have a good front office, if you're a Laker team that doesn't have any assets, then guess what? Nobody that has any sense is going to actually sign up to be there. Nobody that's serious about winning a championship is going to actually want to be in that situation. They're just not. Not if they know what the hell they're doing. And a lot of them don't. But they will. They will, because they're going to watch what we do wrong and they're going to start to understand it a little better. We've learned some of these lessons, man. We just got to be willing to swallow the L when it's necessary to do so. And that's what it seems to me people aren't willing to do. They're not willing to do the wise thing to put themselves in the best position to build the foundation necessary so that they can do the stuff that they want to do. But I'm telling you, tomorrow's coming either way. You're gonna probably lose either way. Question is, are you going to lose while fixing your situation, or are you going to lose digging yourself into a hole? BDL44. Thank you all for watching.